The attic smelled of dust and nostalgia, that unmistakable scent of forgotten things tucked away in the shadows of time. I had planned to spend the afternoon tidying up, making space for Ethan's endless collection of books. He loved his literature, always joking that one day we'd live in a house made entirely of novels. Shoving aside a stack of faded holiday decorations, I noticed an old trunk. It looked out of place amidst the cardboard boxes, its brass hinges tarnished and edges frayed. Curiosity got the better of me. Inside, I found a treasure trove of memories. Photo albums with curling edges, mismatched keepsakes from Ethan's childhood, and at the very bottom, a bundle of envelopes tied with a piece of twine. My fingers hesitated as I lifted them out, the twine rough against my skin. The name Clara was scrawled in Ethan's handwriting on the top envelope, the ink slightly smudged as if his hand had lingered too long on the name. Clara. The name jolted me. It wasn't a name I'd ever heard him mention, not in all the years we'd been together. My stomach churned, a strange mix of unease and curiosity swirling within me. I shouldn't read them, I told myself, but of course I did. Dear Clara, the first letter began. Your eyes remind me of quiet mornings, the kind I ache for when the nights feel endless. The words wrapped around me like a vice, squeezing the air from my lungs. It was so intimate, so raw. Ethan had never spoken to me like that, not even in the early days of our relationship. I devoured the rest of the letter, then moved on to the next, and the next. Each one painted a vivid picture of longing and connection, emotions I thought belonged to us alone. By the fifth letter, tears were streaming down my face. My hands shook as I clutched the papers, my mind racing. Who was Clara? Was she still in his life? Did he love her more than me? I stumbled downstairs, the letters clutched tightly in my hand. Ethan would be home soon, and I had no idea how I was going to confront him. My mind was a whirlwind of questions and assumptions, each one more painful than the last. When the front door clicked open, I was waiting in the living room. Ethan stepped in, setting his bag down with a tired sigh. Hey, love, he said, his voice warm. I couldn't muster a reply. Instead, I held up the letters. Who is Clara? He froze, his smile vanishing as his eyes landed on the bundle in my hand. For a moment, he looked like a child caught sneaking cookies before dinner. Where did you find those? He asked, his tone guarded. In the attic, I replied, my voice trembling. Is that all you have to say? Who is she, Ethan? It's not what you think, he said quickly, stepping closer. Not what I think? I snapped. You wrote letters to another woman, Ethan. Love letters. How else am I supposed to take this? His hand reached for mine, but I pulled away. Maya, let me explain. Then explain, I demanded, my voice cracking. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's complicated. Complicated? I laughed bitterly. No, Ethan. Complicated is leaving the house 5 minutes late or figuring out what to have for dinner. This is betrayal. He opened his mouth to speak, but then closed it again, as if searching for the right words, and coming up empty. The silence between us was deafening. The letters sat on the coffee table now, staring up at us like a third party in our marriage, daring us to address the elephant in the room. I can't do this right now, I said finally, retreating toward the stairs. I need time to think. Ethan didn't stop me. He just stood there, the weight of his silence heavy enough to follow me all the way to the bedroom. And in that silence, the name Clara echoed louder than ever. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that name, Clara, etched in Ethan's familiar scrawl. The words from those letters replayed in my mind, each phrase a needle piercing the delicate fabric of our marriage. By morning, the weight in my chest had grown heavier. Ethan had slept in the guest room, a silent acknowledgement of the invisible wall now separating us. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the letters spread out before me. A mug of coffee sat untouched, steam curling up and dissipating into the cool morning air. My mind was a chaotic mess of questions and doubts, but one thought rose above the rest. I couldn't let this fester. When Ethan finally shuffled into the room, his hair rumpled and eyes tired, he froze at the sight of me. Morning, he said cautiously, like a man approaching a bear trap. Sit, I said, pointing to the chair across from me. He hesitated but obeyed, sinking into the chair and folding his hands on the table like a chastened student. I need answers, Ethan. Real ones. Not this, it's complicated nonsense you gave me last night. He sighed, his eyes darting to the letters. I told you, it's not what you think. I leaned forward, my hands gripping the edge of the table. Then tell me what it is, because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you were in love with someone else. I wasn't, he said quickly. Then who is Clara? I demanded, my voice rising. Ethan rubbed his temples, his shoulders slumping. She's someone from my past. I barked a laugh. Oh, great. That clears everything up. Thanks for the insight, Ethan. It's not like that, Maya. His voice sharpened, his usual calm breaking for the first time. Those letters, they're old, okay? They don't mean anything now. Old or not, you kept them, I shot back. Hidden. Why? If they don't mean anything, why not get rid of them? He looked away, his jaw tightening, because I couldn't. The admission hung in the air like a dark cloud, heavy and suffocating. I pushed back from the table, pacing the small kitchen. You couldn't? What does that even mean, Ethan? You couldn't because you still have feelings for her? You couldn't because you don't want me to know about her? It's not about feelings, he said, his voice softer now. It's complicated. Stop saying that, I yelled, slamming my hand on the table. I'm your wife, Ethan. I deserve to know the truth. Who is she? Why did you write these letters? Why did you keep them all these years? He flinched at my outburst, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Guilt, maybe, or pain. It didn't make me feel better. I don't know how to explain it, he admitted. Try, I said coldly. He stared at me, his expression pleading. Please, Maya, just give me some time to figure out how to tell you. It's not something I can just say, not like this. I folded my arms, glaring at him. You've had years, Ethan. How much more time do you need? I didn't think I'd ever have to talk about this, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Well, here we are, I snapped. And you do. The room fell into a tense silence. Ethan looked like he wanted to say more, but couldn't find the words. I couldn't decide if his hesitation was because he was protecting himself or protecting me. Either way, I was done waiting for answers. Fine, I said, grabbing my coat from the back of the chair. You figure out what you want to say. I'll be at Elena's. Maya, wait. But I was already out the door, the cold morning air biting at my face. Sitting across from Elena at her small kitchen table, I relayed everything. Her face shifted from concern to disbelief as I spoke. Letters? Romantic letters? She repeated, her tone incredulous. I nodded, wrapping my hands around the warm mug she'd handed me. They're beautiful, Elena, heartfelt, and they're not for me. I don't even know what to say, she said, leaning back in her chair. I don't either. I mean, who is Clara? Why did he keep these letters if they mean nothing? Why wouldn't he tell me about her? Elena's expression hardened. Because he's hiding something. Maya, you need to get the truth out of him. If there's one thing I've learned from years in family law, it's that secrets destroy relationships. I tried. He just keeps saying it's complicated. Elena snorted. Of course he does. It's the universal excuse for people who don't want to own up to their mistakes. Her words stung, but I knew she was right. So what do I do? I asked. Elena leaned forward, her gaze firm. You push. You don't let him dodge or deflect. Tell him you're not moving forward until you know everything. Whatever this Clara thing is, you need the whole story. And don't let him off the hook. Her confidence was reassuring, but as I sat there, I couldn't shake the knot in my stomach. Did I even want to know the truth? What if it was worse than I imagined? But Elena was right. I couldn't live in this limbo. Ethan owed me the truth, no matter how complicated it was. Elena always had a way of cutting through the noise. I sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the faint hum of her dishwasher. Her home had always been a place of refuge, but today, even the comfort of her mismatched mugs and cheerful yellow walls couldn't soothe me. Let me get this straight, she said, folding her arms across her chest. You find letters addressed to some mystery woman, confront Ethan, and his best response is, it's complicated? That's his defense? I nodded, my fingers gripping the mug tightly. He won't tell me anything more. He says he needs time to figure out how to explain. Elena snorted, shaking her head. That's not a defense. That's a stall tactic. Maya, he's dodging. And the longer he dodges, the more he's hiding. Her words sent a chill down my spine, but I fought back. What if he's just scared? Maybe it's not as bad as it seems, and he doesn't know how to say it without making it worse. Elena raised an eyebrow, her lawyerly skepticism written all over her face. Maya, you're giving him a lot of credit for a guy who's clearly keeping something from you. What if it is as bad as it seems? Or worse? You can't let him avoid this. You deserve answers. I stared into my coffee, the swirling patterns of cream and liquid mirroring the chaos in my mind. I don't know if I'm ready for the answers, Elena. What if knowing breaks us? Elena leaned forward, her voice softening. Maya, the not knowing is already breaking you. Trust me. Secrets like this fester. They grow into resentment and suspicion until there's nothing left but the cracks. Whatever the truth is, it's better than living like this. When I got home that evening, the house was too quiet. Ethan's car was in the driveway, but he wasn't in the living room or kitchen. I found him in his study, hunched over his desk, his fingers tapping nervously against a closed notebook. Ethan, I said, leaning against the doorframe. He turned, his eyes heavy with something I couldn't quite read. Guilt? Sadness? Hey, he said quietly. I wasn't sure when you'd be back. I crossed my arms, keeping my voice steady. We need to talk. He nodded and gestured to the chair across from him. I sat down, the weight of the moment pressing against my chest. You've had time, I said. I need you to tell me the truth. Who is Clara? Why did you write those letters? He rubbed his temples, exhaling slowly. I know I've been dodging. It's not fair to you. I just didn't know how to start. Try the beginning, I said, my tone sharper than I intended. He flinched but nodded. Clara isn't. She wasn't a real person, not in the way you think. My heart skipped a beat. What does that mean? He hesitated, his eyes searching mine for understanding. Back before I met you, I was lost. My parents had just passed, and I didn't know how to deal with it. My therapist suggested writing as a way to process my emotions. Clara was a character I created, someone to talk to when I felt alone. I blinked, my mind scrambling to make sense of his words. A character? Like fiction? Yes, he said quickly, but she felt real to me at the time. Writing to her helped me get through the worst days. Those letters were my way of saying everything I couldn't say out loud. And you kept them all these years? I asked, my voice trembling. He looked down at his hands. I guess I couldn't let go of that part of myself. It felt like letting go of my parents, too. The anger that had been simmering in me all day started to ebb, replaced by a strange mix of relief and sadness. Why didn't you tell me? I asked softly. I didn't know how, he admitted. It felt too personal, like showing you the ugliest parts of me. And honestly, I didn't think they'd ever come up. I should have told you, Maya. I know that now. I leaned back in the chair, processing his words. You should have. But thank you for telling me now. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly. I'm sorry, Maya. For the letters, for the way I handled this. You deserve better. I nodded, my emotions still tangled. We'll work on that. We sat in silence for a moment, the air between us lighter but still heavy with the weight of what we'd uncovered. I didn't know if everything would be okay, but for the first time since I found those letters, it felt like we were on the same side of the rift. When Ethan finally explained Clara, it was like the fog had lifted, just enough for me to see the outline of what I was dealing with. But there were still shadows, corners he hadn't quite illuminated. I needed more clarity, and if he couldn't provide it, maybe someone else could. That's how I ended up sitting across from Mr. Grayson in a quiet park cafe. Ethan had mentioned his former therapist only a few times, always in passing, but I'd found his contact information tucked in one of Ethan's old notebooks. It felt like a betrayal to reach out to him without Ethan knowing, but desperation has a way of justifying things. Mr. Grayson was a kind-faced man with silver hair and a steady presence that felt immediately reassuring. He stirred his tea with deliberate slowness, as if to give me time to gather my thoughts. So, Maya, he said, his voice warm but direct. What brings you to me? Ethan didn't mention anything, so I assume this is your idea. I nodded, twisting my hands together. I found something. A box of letters Ethan wrote. They were addressed to someone named Clara. He told me she wasn't real, that she was part of a therapy exercise. But I guess I'm still trying to make sense of it all. Mr. Grayson nodded, his expression calm. Ah, Clara. I remember those sessions well. She was a significant part of Ethan's healing journey. I leaned forward. So, it's true? She wasn't a real person? Not in the way you might think, he said, setting his spoon down. Clara wasn't a lover or someone Ethan had feelings for. She was a creation, a projection, if you will. He used her to channel the emotions he couldn't otherwise express. Why did he need her? I asked, my voice softening despite myself. Mr. Grayson folded his hands on the table, his gaze steady. When Ethan came to me, he was deeply grieving the loss of his parents. He felt isolated, like he didn't have anyone to share his pain with. Clara became a safe space, someone he could talk to without judgment or fear of burdening anyone else. I sat back in my chair, letting his words sink in. So, she was a coping mechanism? Exactly, Mr. Grayson said. She was a way for Ethan to externalize his feelings, to put them somewhere outside of himself, where he could process them without being overwhelmed. But why keep the letters? I asked, the old ache creeping back into my chest. Why hide them? Grief doesn't have a tidy ending, Maya, he said gently. Those letters were a piece of Ethan's journey. Maybe he kept them as a reminder of what he'd been through, or maybe he wasn't ready to part with that version of himself just yet. I stared at the table, the knot in my stomach loosening, but not entirely disappearing. He told me he didn't share this with me because it felt too personal, too raw. Mr. Grayson smiled faintly. That sounds like Ethan. He's always been more comfortable with introspection than vulnerability. Sharing those letters with you would have meant exposing a part of himself he's not entirely at peace with. I nodded, the pieces falling into place. It's just hard to think he kept this part of himself from me for so long. That doesn't mean he doesn't trust you, Maya, Mr. Grayson said. It means he's human. We all have parts of ourselves we struggle to share, even with the people we love most. Later, as I walked back to my car, I replayed Mr. Grayson's words in my mind. They softened the edges of my anger, made room for something I hadn't allowed myself to feel, empathy. Ethan wasn't perfect. He'd made mistakes, and his silence had hurt me deeply. But now, I could see the context, the pain and fear that had shaped his decisions. It didn't erase the hurt, but it made it easier to understand. When I got home, I found Ethan in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with the precision of someone who needed a distraction. Hey, I said softly, leaning against the doorframe. He glanced up, surprise flickering in his eyes. Hey, how was your day? Enlightening, I said, stepping into the room. I hesitated, then added, I saw Mr. Grayson. Ethan froze, the knife hovering midair. You, what? I needed to understand, Ethan, I said quickly. I wasn't trying to go behind your back, but I needed answers you couldn't give me. He set the knife down, his shoulders sagging. What did he tell you? That Clara wasn't real, I said. That she was a way for you to cope with losing your parents. Ethan nodded, his expression unreadable. I should have told you that myself. Yeah, I said, my voice soft. You should have. But I get it now, Ethan. I understand why you kept those letters. I wish you trusted me enough to share this part of yourself with me sooner. He stepped closer, his eyes meeting mine. I do trust you, Maya, more than anyone. That's why I'm sorry. For the letters, for hiding them, for all of it. I never wanted to hurt you. I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. And I'm sorry for assuming the worst. I need us to be better at this, Ethan. At talking, at being honest with each other. We will be, he said, his voice firm. Starting now. For the first time in what felt like days, I believed him. I stood at the kitchen counter, slicing strawberries for breakfast, the quiet hum of the coffee maker filling the room. The house felt different that morning, lighter somehow, like the weight of the past few days had finally begun to lift. Ethan walked in, his hair still damp from the shower, and paused in the doorway. Hey, he said softly. Hey, I replied, glancing up. For a moment, neither of us moved. It felt like we were standing on a precipice, both hesitant to take the next step, but knowing we couldn't stay where we were. I was thinking, he began, moving to pour himself a cup of coffee. Maybe we could go out tonight, just the two of us. Dinner, a walk, whatever you want. I set down the knife, wiping my hands on a towel. You don't have to try so hard, Ethan. I'm not looking for grand gestures. It's not a gesture, he said, turning to face me. I want to spend time with you, to remind us both why we're doing this." His words hit me harder than I expected. I nodded, unable to keep the small smile from my lips. "Okay, dinner sounds nice." That evening, we found ourselves at a small Italian restaurant tucked into the corner of town. It was the kind of place we used to go to before life got so busy, intimate, quiet, with dim lighting and soft music in the background. Ethan ordered a bottle of wine, and we sat across from each other, the flickering candlelight casting warm shadows on his face. "I've been thinking about what you said," he began, swirling his glass of wine, "about needing us to be better at talking." I nodded, resting my chin on my hand. "And you're right," he admitted. "I've spent so much of my life trying to handle things on my own, but that's not how a marriage works. I should have trusted you with this part of me sooner." "It's not just you, Ethan," I said gently. "I assumed the worst when I found those letters. I let my fear control the narrative instead of giving you a chance to explain. I should have trusted you too." He reached across the table, his hand brushing against mine. "We're both learning, I guess." The simplicity of his words brought a lump to my throat. "Yeah, we are." Later, as we walked along the waterfront, the cool breeze wrapping around us, I found myself relaxing in a way I hadn't in days. The lights of the city reflected on the water, a kaleidoscope of color that felt oddly symbolic, fractured, but beautiful. "I told Mr. Grayson that I wanted to be better at this," Ethan said, breaking the comfortable silence. "At what?" I asked. "At being a husband, at letting you in," he said, his voice steady but soft. "I want to be the kind of person you can trust completely, without hesitation." I slipped my hand into his, feeling the warmth of his skin against mine. "You already are, Ethan. We just forgot how to trust each other for a little while." He stopped walking, turning to face me. "I promise you, Maya, no more secrets. No more keeping things to myself, because I think I'm protecting you. We're in this together, okay?" I nodded, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. "Okay, together." That night, as we lay in bed, the silence between us was no longer heavy with unspoken words. It was peaceful, the kind of quiet that comes when things feel right. As I drifted off to sleep, Ethan's voice pulled me back. "Maya?" "Yeah," I murmured, my eyes still closed. "Thank you," he said softly. I opened my eyes, turning to look at him. "For what?" "For staying," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "For not giving up on me, on us." I reached out, tracing my fingers along his jaw. "We're worth fighting for, Ethan." He smiled, and in that moment, I knew we'd be okay. Not perfect, not without challenges, but okay. And sometimes, that's enough. Relationships are complex, layered with emotions, and built on trust, just like Maya and Ethan's journey in this story. Have you ever experienced a moment where trust was tested, or a relationship faced unexpected challenges? How did you navigate through it? We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories. Share your experiences in the comments below, whether it's about love, growth, or lessons learned. Let's create a space where we can reflect, connect, and support one another. If this story resonated with you, join our community for more emotionally charged narratives and heartfelt conversations. Follow us, share this story, and be part of the discussion as we explore the many facets of relationships and human connection.